Do you know what we need? A superhero show. No, not another show about a man. We need a superhero show about a woman. No, those suck because patriarchy or something. What we need is a Batman show, but this time, Batman is a lesbian woman who looks like a man. So I've just finished watching the first episode of Batwoman. That's why my eyes are bleeding. It was so awful. Batwoman is literally the hero Gotham doesn't need or deserve. She's the hero literally no one needs, except for lonely single feminists who were bored watching cat videos on YouTube. I watched the entire pilot, and although it was only 55 minutes, it felt so much longer. I was constantly checking how much time was left. The script and the acting were really bland, and overall the show seems well deserving of its 3.2 on IMDb. So let's try and make the best of this as I give you my review of Batwoman, the awful feminist superhero show. I need to wear these so I can clearly see all the BS. Batwoman is a new show by the CW which was just released. It's another one of those shows. You know, one of those crappy, let's take an already famous male character and then make him female and then call everyone who objects a sexist. It follows the main protagonist, Batwoman herself, Kate. She's a rough and tough rambunctious lesbian who doesn't like following rules.
You were seriously not supposed to know what's down there.
So I have this thing with rules?
Yeah guys, she doesn't like rules, she doesn't follow rules. That's why she looks like every single existing stereotype of a lesbian.
This isn't the story I expected to be telling.
So we begin with cliche narration while watching Kate try and break out of ice she's under. I believe this symbolizes the female struggle to break the glass ceiling. No, I'm kidding. This show isn't nearly nuanced enough for that. While she's smashing and banging, we get a few flashbacks. Because that's creative. The flashback scenes look really bad. They basically just lowered the frame rate and made everything echoey. It looks especially cheesy because this is supposed to be a Batman show. Ever since Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy, people have had higher expectations for anything related to Batman. But this is like YouTube tier crap right here. It is really obvious why the creators of this show are being paid less. During these bad flashback scenes, we learn that Batman and Kate have had an encounter in the past. Kate, along with her sister Beth and their mom, were in a car accident when Batman allegedly abandoned the kids and their mother in the car. Kate escaped, but her sister and her mother weren't so lucky. Now, we later find out that Batman thought he saved them, but actually made a mistake. And the reason he left while the kids were still screaming was because he thought he had already saved them. I wish I was, but I'm not making this up. So far, this is about as predictable as Christian music. So she gets out of the ice and we find out she was just training with this random Indian guy. I don't know. Let's just get back to more narration.
I thought he abandoned Gotham for the same reason he abandoned my family. Because he didn't care.
Anyway, the entire opening premise works very hard to establish the fact that Batman has ditched Gotham like a father going to get cigarettes 15 years ago. Next, we learn that Kate's dad has started a super high-end security team called the Crows to protect Gotham now that Batman is gone. Remember, this security team is supposed to be pretty advanced. Remember that because it makes a later scene feel even more pathetic. We now interrupt this broadcast to bring you Spooky Time! It's time to meet the scary, spooky villain, everyone.
Shall we believe the crows will protect us? Oh, I believe 6 impossible things before breakfast.
Ooh, a girl who looks a lot like Harley Quinn but actually isn't Harley Quinn and instead named Alice. Of course, I couldn't help but notice how similar they made this villain to the Joker. But then again, you can't have the Joker in this. He's not a woman. Suddenly shit hits the fan and these evil men in masks kidnap the security girl Sophie. They literally push her off a building and then catch her, which is really elaborate, but it's okay. Because vagina. Next, we get hit with another lazy flashback, and we learn that Sophie, the kidnapped security girl, is actually Kate's ex-lesbian lover. So far, we've got women, minorities, and lesbians. Am I watching a superhero show or a liberal's wet dream?
You take after your cousin, your female Bruce Wayne.
Hey, do you feel empowered yet, feminists? I mean, how can you not with this level of pandering? Oh, by the way, Bruce is Kate's cousin in this show, but she's unaware that he's Batman. Next, we learn that Kate used to be in the military, and this is where her lesbian relationship with Sophie really flourished.
Got me to break every other rule?
But uh-oh, they're now in trouble. Because gay. They trying to pick the military's treatment of lesbians so over the top homophobic, it just feels really forced and it doesn't get the intended message across because it doesn't feel realistic. Yes, gays are still treated poorly in the military, but they try and make this negatively depict the military as homophobic when just a few scenes ago, both these characters acknowledged they were breaking the rules. Plus, I'm pretty sure any public displays of affection in the military, gay or straight, would be heavily scrutinized. The show wants us to believe that Kate and her lover are somehow victims to homophobia, but they don't establish that well at all. Next, Kate breaks into Bruce's office. She tries to justify this by saying she's his cousin, because that'll hold up in court. She has a really cheesy fight with the security guard and then gets on Bruce's computer. By now you may be wondering, why? Because Bruce's computer has surveillance video of Sophie being kidnapped. The security guard asks what she's doing, and Kate replies,
What are you doing?
The crows aren't able to.
Get this thing off me!
okay, I don't want to offend any lesbians here, but let me get this straight. You're telling me that the most advanced security team in all of Gotham can't access surveillance video from Bruce's building? They're literally the top security team in all of Gotham. They began in order to replace Batman, yet they somehow don't have access to this footage. Why? And how is this at all believable? I don't know, maybe they try and explain this better later on? Spoiler alert, they don't. Next, we get more really boring flashbacks about Kate and Sophie. Sophie basically chose to sign some paper admitting to homosexual behavior in order to stay at the academy. Kate, however, refused to sign it, and they break up. It's hard to really care when all we've seen of these two together are makeout sessions and corny dialogue. I was almost laughing during this part. It's trying so hard with so little to go off. Kate then shows the footage she got from Bruce's computer to her dad. Again, why couldn't her father, the head of the top security team in Gotham, access this footage? Remember I said they never try and explain this any better? Well, here was their one chance, but of course they blew it.
Where'd you get this?
Wayne's camera feed isn't on the Crow's network.
Wayne's defunct.
Also, how did Kate even know it would be on Bruce's computer? Female intuition? Anyway, she figures out that Sophie has been taken to the old orphanage. She then breaks into the orphanage and fights off some of the masked goons. This is the only semi-fun part of the first episode. The fight is cheesy but enjoyable, and the action was filmed okay. Overall, this short scene is fun, and it makes me wonder, why does this have to be Batwoman? Why not make your own superhero movie about a woman becoming a superhero? Why do you need to take Batman, one of the most iconic franchises, and muck it up with this obvious feminist slant? Then after fighting off like 10 guys, one little whack on the head, and she's just out cold. Kate is then captured and held in a harness. We then learn Alice's motivation for being evil, and it's bad. Laughably bad. Here it is, guys. Alice is evil because Kate's dad bullies people into obedience and she wants to take his power away.
But he's a bully whose army bullies the city into obedience. I want to take away his power.
Okay, I mean, if you want us to care about these characters, you have to give them better motivation, not some cheap motivation scribbled down on a sticky note by an intern. Alice then goes on some long monologue about how Sophie was the daughter Kate's dad never had. This is attempting to set up the dynamic and hurt that exists between Kate and her father, but this tension between the two was never really introduced previously. Most of the time, Kate and her father seem kind of chill around each other. Alice also mentions she kidnapped Sophie because Kate's dad would try and save Sophie because she's the daughter he never had. But then, literally 2 seconds later, Dad shows up looking for Kate. He also yells at her and says he had half his guys looking for her. So this entirely contradicts the emotional tension the show was just trying to establish. Then Kate gets in a fight with her dad. Kate wanted to be a crow. She wants to be on the action, but her dad won't let her. Kate gets into Batman's cave and finds out her cousin Bruce is in fact Batman. We have some mediocre dialogue loosely trying to explain again that Batman actually did care and he made a mistake when the car fell. And the reason he left Kate's sister and mother screaming for help is because he thought they were already saved. This is such an embarrassing representation of Batman. His superhero style is all about precision and perfection. It almost feels like a joke how poorly this script appears to have been thought out. So in typical, forgettable, predictable script fashion, Kate suddenly decides to become Batwoman. She just does. Nothing leads up to this. She kinda hated Batman in the beginning of this show. She just says something about not following rules.
That's why Bruce became Batman. To play by his own rules.
I know they need to make this about, like, not following rules because Kate is a lesbian and she's not following rules or something, but Bruce became Batman to protect Gotham. It wasn't about following your heart or not following rules or some quote you pulled from a white girl's Instagram. But whatever, this show obviously has no respect for Batman, the name they're using to make this awful show somehow seem relevant. Then we get slapped in the face with this wonderful line.
The suit is literal perfection.
It will be. When it fits a woman.
Yeah, guys, Batman's suit will be perfect when it fits some D cups and has a tampon holder. Fast forward, and we are at the first big public event since Batman left. This is an event that the Crows are also pretty nervous about since it is, again, the first big public event. But this big event, I am not kidding, is an outdoor movie showing. I am not making this up. It's such little significance, it's hard to take this seriously. The evil villain Alice calls up Kate's dad, the leader of the Crows, and reveals that there's a truck filled with explosives, somehow. Alice says she's going to either kill Sophie and not blow the truck up, or she's going to save Sophie and blow up the truck, killing the families at the public movie showing. I suppose this part should feel dramatic, but it doesn't at all. The show constantly tries to use dialogue to establish some relationship between the father and Sophie. However, we never see this relationship, so we're not really given a big reason to care. Because there's no real weight to this scene, the action feels passive, bland, and forgettable. Then, in the nick of time, Batwoman shows up. We get this really bad fight scene now. Like, what is happening? This looks like two high school girls fighting in the cafeteria. It also doesn't really make sense because Kate just discovered the suit and she's already doing crazy Batman tricks. Anyway, she saves Sophie and the show reminds us again that Batwoman is a woman.
Not him.
Later on, we find out Sophie has turned away from her wicked lesbian ways and married a putrid white man. Ugh.
And because you're all I have left, Kate. And I don't want to lose you too.
Then Kate's father admits he was never going to let Kate become a crow because he loves her too much to let anything happen to her. Again, this is predictable. From the minute Kate and her father started fighting in the show, I knew this is where it was heading.
That I was running toward everything that didn't want me. A private army. My own father.
Okay, wait, hold on a minute. Why did she just say her dad doesn't want her? Did they write this script out of order and then film it out of order and just splice it all together and hope for the best? The dad literally just admitted he didn't let Kate become a crow because she's all he has left. We can't feel sorry for the main protagonist when everything is so inconsistent. Seriously, I'm pretty sure Stevie Wonder could have seen that this doesn't add up. Finally, the show wraps up with Kate writing a letter to Bruce, and then the plot twist. We find out that Alice is actually Kate's sister Beth, who we thought died in the car accident. How does this make sense? So Beth is evil? Why? So she wants to take her dad's power away. Again, Why? Overall, this show sucked. It's obvious that feminists should just stay out of the film industry and stick to knitting and throwing yarn for their female cats. This show completely lacked nuance, and it failed to introduce a new female protagonist well. Rather than putting a lesbian character or a female character into an interesting story, they try and use the protagonist's identity to make the story interesting. The script was basic, bland, forgettable, and did not strive to do anything new. I think it's funny because the show is supposed to be all about breaking the rules, but the show follows every rule imaginable and plays everything painfully safe. The script was bland, the dialogue was poorly written and acted, the action was passive and never felt threatening, the character's motivation made no sense, and it tries to use women and minorities to make an awful show feel slightly more watchable. Overall, I'd have to rate this 2 out of 10, because it was fun to make fun of, but that's about it. Feminists and liberals, please, from the bottom of my heart, stop making movies. You guys suck, your movies suck, and no one, not even Gotham, deserves that.